think a lot of times when people are purchasing businesses, they don't realize that you really do need to have a third party come in, do the audits, do the due diligence, and actually, go and ask other industry people, and ask them, hey, what do you think about this business? And now it's even easier because we have so much social media and Facebook groups that you can easily ask these questions. But, back 10 years ago, it wasn't this accessible, and it wasn't this close knit of a situation either.
No, yeah, there were Facebook was around, but there were no Facebook group. Absolutely not. We didn't even have a valuation done on the business. She gave a price and we countered, and then that was it. There was no, this is what it's valued at. It was just a number in her head, which isn't that crazy that we did that 10 years ago? I would not recommend that either.
Yeah, probably not. But like you said, you gained so much wisdom.
Yes. Yes.
And you very quickly became a more refined business owner because of those situations. Yes, it was probably scrappy in the beginning. But how did you combat the bad reputation? How did you remedy that? Because that is something hard to rehabilitate. And so what were some of the steps that you did take? And if you don't mind sharing, what were some of the things that she had created a bad reputation on?
Sure, absolutely. So this is where I believe my background as a venue coordinator really helped me, because I knew that I was going in to these venues, because venues is going to be the major source of business for all vendors, but of course for wedding planners as well. A lot of times a couple will book their venue and then decide they need a planner or coordinator. The venue will say, you need to have one based off of our requirements. So I started to go into these meetings, and at first I went in there smiley and just upbeat and ready to connect and excited that I had this fancy new business. And then I would say after maybe the 5th venue, that's when I started to think this is consistently not going well. And I remember laying in bed at night thinking, what have I done? Could I potentially go back to my job and just this is a nightmare that was a mistake, and hope that they will take me back? But what I did, and what I believe was that turning point, is I knew that my professionalism, being professional, is really important to me. So I knew if I could get my foot in the door and bring an event to them, or have the opportunity, if I could get them to refer me, I could set myself apart pretty quickly from the previous owner. So I started to shift the way that I would talk to the venue coordinators when I would go into those meetings. So instead of saying, I'm Megan, I'm the new owner of a Southern Soiree, here's who I am and how I think I could help, that was not my goal. My goal was, tell me what makes your life easier when there's a planner involved in, and what do you love about working with planners? Tell me what you don't love. What are the things that planners do that kind of make your life more difficult? Because I had seen that as a venue coordinator. So I knew asking those questions was something that no other planner was doing when they were going to those meetings. And
what
I think
a great tip.
Yes, I teach that now to other wedding planners. I'm let me tell you how to get your foot in the door versus going and dropping off business cards. That's not going to get you anywhere. So I started asking, what could I do to make your life easier? Tell me about the things. It was just asking questions related to event planners in general. I wasn't looking for them to give me specific names. I wasn't asking to be put on their preferred vendor list. I just wanted to make their life easier, and I asked how I could do that. And I think that they walked away from those meetings thinking I've never been asked that before. That's an interesting thing, and I would like to give this girl a chance. And it was a combination of, there were still leads coming into the business. So I was I was two things. I was pretty cheap, and and I was very intentional about how I served those leads. Those leads came in, I got back to them faster than you could, snap your fingers. I was in their inbox. I was ready to hop on a call. And then my pricing was very competitive, because I knew that if I didn't book weddings, I wouldn't pay the bills.
Right.
And I think that's something that industry vendors that are veterans that have been in the business for a long time, they can get really hung up on the newbies that come in that
Mhm.
charge less than them. And there's always going to be a newbie. I mean, there's always going to be someone that
Yeah.
is charging not enough, right? They're either going to figure that out and they're going to realize that they're working hours upon hours and they're going to
Mhm.
consistently raise their rates, or they're not going to stay around. So I just think that vendors and industry pros waste too much time and effort and energy worrying about the newbies coming in that are undercutting them, and just focus more on like what you have to offer and what
Mhm.
the value is that you bring.
I
So
love that because I think not just for repairing a pre-existing reputation, but even for repairing an existing reputation in your own personal business, that can always hold true. Going in and asking those open-ended questions so people will talk and showing them your willingness to hear also, I think that makes the difference. So the whole question of tell me how I can help you or how I can make this easier for you is such an open-ended question, but it can really be filled with a lot of information as like the answers come to you. So I think that's brilliant. And then also taking action, right? Like
mhm.
we can talk about it all day long, but if we don't take action, it's worth nothing. And so it's so beautiful that you went in there and you took those actions. And you delivered a lot and you were very timely. And so I think that definitely helps overturn any negativity that might be existing. Yeah, I
Yeah.
completely agree with you. Now, we didn't really get to this planner's vault, but can you kind of touch on it really quickly and how you started
Yes,
it
of
and
course.
what it's
Yes.
about?
Yes. So the planner's fault came from doing a fair amount of one-on-one consulting and coaching with planners in my market, and then starting to branch outside of that. And I realized that I was giving a lot of the same advice when it comes to client experience or vendor relations or the back end side of your business. I would type up these notes for each of these one-on-one consults, and looking back, I was like, same thing, same thing, same thing. It's the same struggles that a lot of business owners have, specifically planners. And I thought about how there are really great educators out there. You can hire a business coach, you can go through a course, and there's also a ton of free information that you can find
Mm-hmm.
on Google or in Facebook groups. But I believe that sometimes that can be a little overwhelming because you can
Mm-hmm.
hear 42 different answers to how you should handle one particular client
Yeah.
interaction. Yeah. So I wanted to bridge the gap between free information and, multi-thousand-dollar business coach, and be a resource for those planners that are just starting out that I did
Mm-hmm.
not have. It's interesting. I go back to where I was in year zero, and I figured everything out the hard way. And I wanted to create a little bit more space and community. And then the not funny part about it is that I launched the Planner's Vault. Like, it was brand new. I launched it February 27th of 2020. And then coronavirus came it was 2 weeks later, and all events stopped. And then I was like, oh, I'm going to lead brand new planners through a global pandemic when the event industry
Yeah.
is shut down.
But I tell you, I can't think of a better time when they could have had a group of women or men that were in the same industry and helping
Yes.
and guiding each other. Like that mentorship probably was unparalleled, especially in the time when everything was just haywire. So,
Yes, I think it created a community that is very tight knit. And I have said to them many times, it's like, you are, anywhere between 0 to 5 years in business. This will be the hardest year that you ever have. And if you can
yeah.
survive this, you will be fine. You will be just
Yeah.
fine.
Just quick question. I'm really curious actually. Did you ever go back to that person who sold you the business and say, "Hey, what did you sell me?" Or like, I mean, did that
I
conversation ever happen?
Not really. I mean, there were definitely certain things that I had to go back to her and be like, wait, you said that this was the remaining payment for this particular client, and that is not,
Yeah.
what is coming up now. So there were things like that. I started to share more publicly, not in the first couple of years, but I think I did a blog post at 5 years, and I wrote, this is what it's like to have owned a business over the last 5 years, and here's where the rough start came and how I dug out of it. And I remember her reaching out to me after reading that blog post, and
Wow.
not her view is different, and that's okay. Her
Cool.
view is that it is more from just the vendors, and it's a long story, but her view is
Mhm.
that it was not in the place that it was in, but that she wasn't the one going to those venues and hearing the stories
Mhm.
that I
Mhm.
heard. So we just decided to, I think I'm still friends with her on Facebook, and
That's nice. Yeah.
it's fine. It was 10 years. So at this point
Then
yeah,
it's
yeah,
gone.
yeah.
But if if you had any advice on what you needed at that time, or even now, like what
Yes.
are some like top three legal things would you tell everybody that this is what you really need when you're purchasing a business or running the business you're running?
Yes. Oh my gosh. You tell me. You did not
I
just.
can tell you, I can tell you a lot actually.
I bet you could. I bet you could. Actually, that would be interesting. Why don't you tell me what are three things that if you're purchasing a business
Yeah.
or you're taking over ownership, or let's say, because I've heard many stories of like planners that are the number two for the original planner and
Mhm.
they're going to take it over. Like, what are three things, like quick things that you're like, okay, this is what you need to do that Megan
Yeah.
did not do? It's fine.
No, it's totally fine. I mean, we can laugh about it because you're awesome right now and things are great and but I think, number one is due diligence. And due diligence is it's two words, but it has a lot of heavy lifting. And it's really digging deep into the financials of the company and also the industry reputation and the goodwill of the company. And also to know, especially if they have any debt or if they have any liens or if they have any other things that where you are literally taking it over, and are you going to be now almost bankrupt because this person was
Oof.
on the cusp of bankruptcy? You were really kind. People can sue over this.
Wow. I had no idea.
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm just like so floored at how kind you guys were because
We were
honestly,
just
like,
dumb. We were just dumb.
and honestly, like, ignorance can be a bliss, right? This all
Yes.
worked out for you because you kept going. You didn't allow that to stop you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that also should be there, that there should be resilience. If you are purchasing a business, there's going to be some issues that are existing that they won't tell you about. There might be some existing manufacturers or vendors that don't want to do business with you anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And not you, but the company.
Company.
But you won't know that. Even in due diligence, it's like buying a home and having an
Mm-hmm.
inspector come, but then they won't tell you that this light's not working for, I don't know,
Yeah.
something very small and minor. So that due diligence is huge. And if you need to bring in third parties for that, do it. It's worth it. It's worth the
Yes.
money that goes in upfront. And
For
that
the
way,
peace of mind
it's a
too.
peace of mind, right? Like, it's a total peace of mind. Within that due diligence, also look at the contracts that are existing in the company and, how are those contracts placed? Can they transfer over to the new owner or do they not
Mm-hmm.
transfer over to the new owner?
Mm-hmm.
And so that would be something that you would want to look at and make sure that there is an option to assign to another person.
Right.
And then a third thing that I would definitely look at is intellectual property, is that when you are purchasing this business, what are the assets you're purchasing and what liability are you taking over? And do the assets include intellectual property? And what I mean by that is, does it include the trademark, the logo, the website? Does it include the paperwork that they've created? If you're buying somebody else's pre-existing wedding, business and they're planners, are you going to also get all the templates that they've made that they have
Mm-hmm.
stored for their clients? Just, you need to know. Are you getting all of that? Is that part of it? Or do you have to reinvent the wheel? And then
Right.
does it make sense to even buy it then? Or are you just buying
Yeah.
the name? Are you
Same
buying the
thing like
reputation?
images too, especially
Yeah.
speaking like wedding, if it's event planning business, being able to use those images for your portfolio should be, I think, part of the purchase.
Yeah. And I mean, even how you talked about that there was already like 3 or 4 existing clients of this
Mm-hmm.
business, you want to make sure that those clients are okay with you taking
Mm-hmm.
over, because this is not just you're going to a Macy's or a Foley's. It's
Mm-mm.
not that. This is now a very personal event. Like you said, there's a lot of emotion involved. And
Yes.
this is one person's big day, but you might be doing a lot of these, but for that one person, this means a lot.
Yeah.
And that agreement needs to be there. So
Agreed. Those are great. That was
there's
way
a
better
lot.
for
I
you.
can I can
That
keep
was
on going.
way better for you to answer than me. So I'm so glad that you did that.
So tell
Yeah.
me, let's talk about some fun facts before we
Okay.
leave. So what is your favorite book? Business, happy, personal, doesn't matter.
Well, I'm a big Brene Brown fan, and I
Mm-hmm.
just finished listening to the audio version book of Dare to Lead. So I thought that was really great, especially if you are a business owner and you do have, or you aspire to have a team. I thought that that was really impactful for me. It made me just kind of look at my own team a little bit differently and how I could show up better as a leader to them. Another business book I love is Building a Story Brand by Donald
Oh
Miller.
yes, I love that
Love
too.
that book. And then just a personal one, I love You Are a Badass by Jen Sincero. Those are like my three favorites.
Love it. Love it. Thank
Yeah.
you so much for coming on this show today. I appreciate it so much. Where can people contact you and reach you?
Yes. So I have a wedding industry podcast called Weddings for Real. You can check me out and find me on any podcast platform. We are there. On Instagram, I'm at Weddings for Real. And then the Planner's Vault is at Planner's Vault. And the website, if you want to hop on the waiting list, we open it up 4 times a year, is theplannersvault.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm going to put
Thank
all this
you.
information in the show notes so people can communicate with you and connect with you. Thank you so
Thank,
much for coming today. It was so
thank you.
great talking to
Great
you.
conversation.
I
Thanks.
know it was wonderful. So much insight. Thank you.
Yes.